first of all, thank you so much for attending this first Q&A webinar for the Communities Thrive Challenge. I just want to take care of a few housekeeping items and then we'll get started. My name is Lynn Van Dievender and I work for an agency called The Common Pool. And we have worked with the agency that has been working with the Rockefeller Foundation and the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative to design, develop, and manage the Communities Thrive Challenge. Today, I'll just give you a brief overview of the agenda. We're going to spend a few minutes, hopefully Rachel Korberg from the Rockefeller Foundation will be able to join us and give us a brief introduction to the Communities Thrive Challenge. And if we're still experiencing technical difficulties, we'll go into the sort of demonstration portion of it, the program, and then come back to her. I do want to let everyone know that the session is being recorded. We will post a copy of the recording onto the challenge website, so everyone will be able to review it if you'd like again. Because we have a large number of people on this call today, we ask that if you have a question, to please ask it via the chat box. I'd also like to acknowledge that because of the high volume of attendees, it's unlikely that we'll be able to get to every single question that is asked. So the approach that we will take will be that as we see things come in, we'll see themes. I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions about eligibility, and a question we often get asked is about indirect costs. Any of those types of things that come in, Jenny, who will be reading the question, will try and group them as best she can, and we'll answer as many as we can. We're not going to spend a lot of time up front talking because we do want to get as many questions answered as possible. So after this brief introduction, I'm going to give you a very brief overview of the competition website in hopes of answering some of your questions right off the bat, and then we'll really open it up to Q&A. So everyone should have access to the Q&A box where you can type your questions, and I see that a lot of people have already started entering questions. So I'll go ahead and just give a brief overview, and then as Rachel is able to join us, she will. Jenny, if you just want to pull up the About page for the Communities Thrive Challenge, this is a great place to get a little bit of background about the challenge itself. And the Rockefeller Foundation and the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative believe in an America where all people can earn enough to support their families, achieve financial security, and provide their children with more opportunities. This is why the Rockefeller Foundation and the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative, with guidance from community leaders across the country, have created the Communities Thrive Challenge. This is a $10 million funding opportunity that are open to organizations that are working to expand economic opportunity for low-income and financially insecure people and communities in the United States. So I'm sure you may have some more questions about that, and we'll look to Rachel to answer those later. But let's go ahead and get started, and I just want to show you a couple of things. So the Communities Thrive Challenge has been intentionally developed to be open, transparent, and fair. And you may, I'll explain what I mean by each one of those things. So in terms of openness, so we publish everything on the competition website. Hopefully all of you, I believe, are registered for the challenge already. And we really try and publish all of the information up front. So hopefully many of your questions can be answered with what's already on the website. But we publish the application up front. We'll talk about that in just a minute. We talk about the scoring process, we share who the judges are, and lastly, we have a mechanism for ensuring fairness. So when we say that we're open, that means that anyone who is eligible for this challenge and has access to a computer and the internet is eligible to apply. In terms of transparency, we share the information right up front before you even register. So Jenny's going to go ahead and show us the application. Thank you, Jenny, if you want to pull up your screen. Oh, yep, there it is. Thank you. And on the screen, you can find out all the information that you need for this particular challenge. that's usually the first question that people ask when they come to this website. What is it that I have to do to participate? And this page explains exactly what you need to do. And then usually the second thing that people ask is, well, now that I know what I have to do to apply, how am I going to be scored? So Jenny, if you want to just share the scoring process, the trait scoring rubric. So as you can see, these are the traits that will be used to score your application. And we'll talk about, there's 2 rounds of assessment, and we'll talk about that momentarily. But first of all, I want to talk a little bit about the trait scoring rubric here. So there are 4 traits that your application will be assessed on. The first is impact. The second is potential for scale. The third is community-based or informed. And the last is leadership. And as you can see on each of these traits, there's the trait, and then there's some questions that further define what we mean by that trait. And then lastly, there's a 5-point Likert scale that if you can, as Jenny toggles back and forth, you can see that there is information that specifically describes what it is that we're looking for in each one of these traits. So usually once people know, what it is that they have to do, how the process is going to work in terms of scoring, the next thing that they ask is, well, who's actually going to be doing the scoring? And we're quite excited to have incorporated 2 rounds of assessment. So during peer-to-peer review, each and every one of you that submit a valid application will be asked to score 5 other applicants' submissions using those same trait scoring rubrics. So scalable, impact, community-driven, informed, and leadership. Once the peer-to-peer review has completed, up to 80 applications will advance to the next round of assessment, which is where our expert panel comes in. As Jenny is scoring through that, you can see who the members of our expert panels are. You can click into their bios and learn a little bit more about them. We're really excited to have this amazing panel of reviewers participating in the Communities Thrive Challenge. Lastly, the thing that I want to say is we also, so there at the end of this process, at the end of the Communities Thrive Challenge, there will be up to 10 $1 million grants awarded. There will likely be many more people who apply, many more organizations to apply to participate. And one thing that we're really excited about is, as part of this process, everyone who submits a valid application and remains eligible by participating in the peer-to-peer review will walk away from the Communities Thrive Challenge with a packet of at least 5 sets of scores and comments. So this is really valuable information. This will be information from other organizations that are working in the same field. We hope that you'll view this as an opportunity for cross-collaboration and to really learn about some other amazing efforts that are happening here in the United States. And with that, the last thing that I want to talk about is fairness. So in terms of fairness, we actually publish our normalization routine on the competition website. And this is how we ensure fairness across both the peer-to-peer review and the expert panel review. In a lot of cases, people have different ways that they score. Jenny on the phone here may be a hard score. She may only ever give out 1s and 2s. I may be an easy scorer, and I may only ever give out 4s and 5s. So how do we account for that? And this page here, the level playing field, explains our mathematical formula that we applied to ensure that all applications are treated fairly. And we publish that so that you can have a chance to review it and ask any questions that you might have about it. Let's see. I think that's all I want to say for the moment. I think that with that, I'm going to try one more time to see if we have audio from Rachel.
Hi, you do.
Oh, yes. Oh, I'm so happy. Great, Rachel. I'm going to turn things over to you. And I know we're a little out of order, but let you do your welcome and your introduction, and we'll open things up for questions.
Thank you, Lynn. Hi, everyone. My apologies for the audio issue earlier. My name is Rachel Korberg. I'm an associate director at the Rockefeller Foundation, and I lead much of our work related to economic opportunity and inclusive economic development. And I'm also the Rockefeller lead for the Communities Thrive Challenge. I wanted to take a moment to just tell you a little bit about why we did this challenge in partnership with the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative. So Rockefeller and the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative believe in a future where every person in this country can earn enough money to support their families, achieve financial security, and provide their kids with more opportunities. And I see in my work that every day, whether it's a local government, a business, a nonprofit, working to make this dream possible in their communities. Just today, I'm actually in Louisville, Kentucky with some of our partners. I spent some time walking around a historically marginalized neighborhood and seeing community groups working hand in hand with the city, with developers, trying to create inclusive local development and development without displacement. I can point to so many other examples. We were very inspired by some work in West Virginia led by a woman and people of color run small business accelerator that was really helping to, for example, bring a farmer's market with fresh local produce to an area that was a food desert, that was helping to create a skills training program for out-of-work former coal miners or people who were impacted by the decline of that industry. In Hawaii, we've seen amazing community work to develop a policy and a program to fund elder care and to also provide to try and increase the wages of care workers. So I share these three examples just as stories of the amazing community-driven work that we see across the country. So that's part of the inspiration for the Communities Thrive Challenge. We see that communities are not going to sit around and wait on national solutions, that there's so much great work that's already being done. But too often it's being missed by the institutions that could really provide the funding and support to help grow these great community-driven approaches to help them reach more people. So that's why we came together, Rockefeller and the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative, to create this open challenge. A couple of things that I want to tell you about it that I'm really proud of and excited about. The first is that, as Lynn said, this is a truly fair and transparent process. Sometimes foundations are in an echo chamber. They're just talking with the same people. They're working with the same people they've always worked with. That's not what this challenge is about. And to really make good on that, you're only eligible to apply to this challenge if you have not received past grants from Rockefeller or the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative in at least a decade. Another thing that's really important to us about this challenge is that everyone gets something out of the application process, even if you don't get $1 million in the end. So as Lynn said, for the top 80 organizations, for the organizations that advanced to round 2, everyone will receive an honorable mention. We will share and spread your names widely. And everyone, of course, will receive feedback on both the first and second round. So really getting feedback on your organization, on the way you presented your application, hopefully learning something along the way, and also providing that feedback to others. For the final 20 organizations, we'll be conducting site visits with all of those applicants, and all of the applicants in that round that don't make it to the final 10 will receive a $5,000 donation. And finally, for the 10 final grantees, each will receive 3 main things. The first is that $1 million grant, and that's over a 2-year period. You'll receive it all up front, but it's a 2-year open period. The second is tailored technical assistance. So what is it that you really need to take your work to the next level, to grow it and to scale it within or beyond your community? We will be working with each grantee to really identify what that is, and then to develop a tailored technical assistance plan, and there are additional resources for that technical assistance. And then the third and final thing that the grantees will receive is a national platform to tell your story. We will be investing in media and digital communications to really get your message out there and to stand behind it. So with that, I will turn it back to Lynn, but I'll first say that I'm sorry that my colleague, Janie Lorber from the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative, was not able to join and to also share with you a little bit about the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative and why they're so committed to and passionate about this challenge. She is unfortunately stuck on a delayed flight, but I extend her best to everyone and will answer questions on behalf of the full challenge. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rachel. So we're going to go into the Q&A session. As I said, we have about 40 minutes here. So we're going to answer as many as we can. We're going as quickly as we can. I do want to just acknowledge that we are not going to be able to get every single question answered, although we will do our best. If for some reason we did not answer your question, we really would appreciate you sending your question to questions@communitiesthrivechallenge.org. You will get a response there. We will follow up with everyone that submits their question there. And my colleague Jenny Pazar is going to be reading off the questions, and Rachel will likely be answering most of the questions, but I am here to support her for any sort of platform or website related questions as well.
Great, thank you, Lynn. I'll go ahead and get started. First question, I am working on systems change that has a very broad impact. Is it best to list the broadest possible impact on the number of people served, or only the people immediately and directly involved in the project?
Thanks for this question. Systems change work is so important. It is so hard, and I appreciate the work that you're doing and appreciate that you may take the time to apply. It's ultimately up to you to decide how best to tell the story of your work in this application. But please note that there is an ability to speak to both direct and indirect impact on the application. There's even a question that asks for the direct number of people impacted and then the indirect number of people impacted. So that is a great way to tell the story of some of the broader impact and to draw the distinction between direct and indirect.
Thank you, Rachel. Next question, what types of organizations typically win the Communities Thrive grant?
I wish I could tell you that, but this is actually the first time that we are doing this challenge. And part of the reason we're doing this challenge is because of how committed we are to standing behind community leaders and to ensuring that the priorities of communities, their successes, their challenges really inform not just this $10 million, but actually our much longer term, larger scale funding strategies at Rockefeller and the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative. So we aren't necessarily planning to do this again. This isn't a long-term strategy. This is a way for us to do some great work now by backing community-driven approaches to expanding economic opportunity, but that our longer-term future and larger-scale funding strategies may not take the exact same approach in terms of how we deploy our resources.
Great. Next question. How many grants will be awarded and what are the sizes of funding?
There will be 10 grants ultimately awarded, $1 million each. For 501c3 registered nonprofit organizations, that $1 million is general operating support. So it is fairly unrestricted. For other organizations, any organization that is not a 501c3 registered nonprofit, then the grant, as per IRS law, will need to be a project grant, and there are some additional questions we'll ask you to answer about the public benefit of this work to ensure that it meets all charitability requirements as per IRS law. And you can find some more details about that in the rules on the website and in application round 2.
Great. What makes an organization stand out to judges?
Rachel, I can take a stab at that if you'd like. I would really encourage people to look at the application and the application questions, and also to really learn that trade scoring rubric inside and out, because that's how you will be scored and assessed. So, you know, I would say any of those traits that you look at, and if you're looking at the 4s and 5s, those are really the kinds of things that will stand out.
Thanks, Lynn. I agree with that. And just to build on it, the trait scoring rubric is how the applications are really structured too. So when you see things like impact, leadership, that is built into all of the application questions. So please really take a look at that, as Lynn said, and consider focusing your writing on that. I would also say it's important to tell the story of your organization in your own words. So we've tried to put as much information as possible on the website so you really understand what the challenge is and what we're looking for. But those are our words. There's so many different ways to talk about how to create change in a community, what is working on the ground for your community. And I just encourage you to be authentic and genuine, and to truly tell the story in your own words, because that's how we want to hear it.
Great, thank you. Next question, can you please explain a little more about the peer review process?
Rachel, would you like me to take that one, or would you like to?
Go ahead, please. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. So really the purpose of the peer-to-peer review process, as I mentioned earlier, is that we're really trying to, in a small way, start some cross conversations and have other organizations learn about other organizations that are doing this important work. And really, we'll be sharing more information. We will actually have a Q&A webinar that's specifically focused on the peer review. But at a high level, using that trait scoring rubric, you will be looking at 5 other applications. You know, we ask you to be thoughtful in your comments that you provide, and really, you know, try and address it in a way that with comments that you would find helpful if it were your application. This is a process that we have done on many, many different challenges around the world. It's been it's very successful way of kind of fostering collaboration and learning more about each other's work. Which I don't know if you'd like to add anything. More information to come, basically, too.
That was great. Let's do the next question.
Great. Next question. Is this opportunity geared towards serving adults, or could it also support workforce development programs for youth aged 15 to 24?
There is no age restriction in terms of the priority population, but there is a focus on expanding economic opportunity. So if you're working on workforce for ages 15 to 24, that certainly seems in focus.
Next question, what is the timeline for spending down the grant funds?
There is a 2-year window from the point of receiving the award to closing the grant award.
We are a statewide organization and our programs cover the entire state of Maine. Are we still eligible?
Yes, you are still eligible. We would, for statewide organizations and for others who may have a larger geography, we encourage you to really use the application questions on community-driven and community-informed to explain to us how you really are driven by community priorities and by community leaders.
Great. Next question, will you fund scholarships, and is it possible to re-grant these funds?
For general operating support grants to 501c3 organizations, re-granting is certainly one of, and scholarships are certainly 2 of many eligible activities. General operating support is really for organizations that are nonprofits to determine the best use of those funds. For project grants, and those would be for non-501c3 organizations, those are activities that are also allowed as well, as long as they meet the public benefit and charitability requirements as per IRS law. And we can certainly provide answer to a more specific questions with legal guidance from our lawyers if it comes up later in the process.
Great. Is there an advantage to applying as a team of organizations versus applying as just one organization?
You're welcome to apply as a team or as just one. There must be one anchor applicant organization that would actually receive the funds. We don't have an explicit preference stated anywhere about whether applying on your own or applying in a team is better. Both are great approaches to take. Regardless of whether you apply alone or as part of a team of organizations, collaboration, being integrated into and informed by the community, potentially having partnerships with other leaders in your space, these are all really important indicators of success. That you'll see that the application asks questions that get at that. So we will be looking for that type of information on how community driven and community informed you are, regardless of whether you apply on your own or as part of a partnership.
Great. Can you clarify how you want us to define individuals served directly versus indirectly?
I unfortunately can't provide a specific definition there because the types of work that we're talking about are so different. So for example, financial security or financial coaching work, direct impact there looks very different than place-based inclusive economic development in a community. So I unfortunately can't define that, but there is an opportunity for you to define that in the application and let us know what you consider direct versus broader impact or indirect.
Great. Are there limitations on what the money can be spent on? For example, can some of the money be spent to do significant renovations to our facility?
I'll give the same answer as before. For general operating support, grants that meet the requirements for you to receive general operating support, so you're a 501c3 registered nonprofit organization, that funding can be used for fairly broad purposes, and it's up to the organization to determine how it's used for lawful purposes, of course. So if the renovation of a building were a key part of the approach and the way that you get to impact, that could certainly be eligible.
Great. Next question. Is it prudent when answering the question, what would you do with $1 million, to have a general plan related to potential for scale or targeted specific programming use?
Well, most importantly, we're looking for organizations that already have a track record of delivering significant and consistent results that truly improve people's lives and strengthen communities. So the approach should just be, what you're actually doing on the ground. It shouldn't be something new that you're proposing to try for the first time. We certainly welcome risk, experimentation. We understand that. But having a track record and already being established and doing this work is an important first part of this challenge.
Thank you. Will the peer-to-peer review be the sole determination of advancing, or will you spot check?
Peer-to-peer review.
So yes. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Rachel. Please
go ahead, Lynn.
So yes, peer-to-peer review is used as a down selection process to move to the evaluation panel review. And yes, we will be reviewing the applications through an administrative review.
And probably one more here for you, Lynn. Please define valid application.
So a valid application is one that through this administrative review that I mentioned has ensured that it meets all eligibility requirements and the rules of the competition. So we have a rules page on the challenge website, and if you haven't already read those rules, please just do. But typically the kinds of things that we're looking for is making sure that videos aren't too long, that the videos contain appropriate content, that the application has been completed in full. Yeah.
Great, next question. Will the challenge fund organizing and/or policy advocacy or only direct service?
The challenge is open to advocacy, also to social purpose businesses. It is not only about direct services, and that should be clear on the website. So thank you for the question.
I've registered as an individual, but represent our organization as the primary liaison for applying. Do I need to have others from my organization register as well?
The answer is no. A single person can represent an organization as long as they have the authority of that organization to, the approval of that organization to represent them.
For local context, do you wish a description of the communities that our organization serves nationwide, or just the communities to be served by the specific programs funded by this challenge?
Well, this is a challenge that's primarily for community-based and community-driven organizations. We will be looking to for a description of the local context in which you're operating. So the specific community that you're serving as part of this grant.
Thanks, Rachel, and this sort of connects to that. Is there a preferred geographic focus for the challenge, regional versus urban versus rural, with most significant challenges?
No, there's no preferred geographic focus. We welcome applications from small and large cities, from suburban areas, from rural communities. And I also want to take this moment, you may have been getting to this, Jenny, but a couple of questions have come in asking if Puerto Rico is eligible. Absolutely, please apply. We welcome your applications. This is open to the U.S. and to all U.S. Territories as well.
Great. Next question. If you are part of a large organization and another department may have received funding from Rockefeller in the last 12 years, I believe it's 10 years, does that disqualify the whole organization?
If you are part of a legal registered entity that has received funding from Rockefeller or the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative in the past decade, unfortunately, you're not eligible.
Do the applicants need to be nonprofit organizations?
No. Please check out the Q&A on the website. There are multiple types of organizations that are welcome to apply.
Is there an indirect cost rate?
No, there's not, and there's opportunity to provide that information much later in the process at the round 2 stage.
Here's a question about the video component. Would a media team be able to help with the video part of the application, and will the quality of the video be judged?
I can answer that one, Rachel. So the thing that is most important about the video is that it's authentic and speaks to your organization and the impact of the work that you do. It does not need to be high quality. Most of our applicants submit videos just using their iPhone or smartphone. We really encourage you not to spend a lot of money creating a high production quality video. That is not what we are asking for. Really, we're looking for that genuine, authentic communication that talks about your work.
Is there a preferred population focus for the challenge, such as disconnected youth or those at the bottom of economic distribution, et cetera?
There's no preferred population focus in terms of youth or similar. However, we are really looking for organizations that are working to serve or collaborate with or otherwise support populations that are really struggling, that have experienced marginalization historically and may still be confronting it today, that may look like structural racism, that may look like economic injustice or economic exclusion. So we are very much looking to for organizations that are working with people who, as a result of multiple factors, find themselves in a position of being financially insecure and low income.
Do you expect the proposed projects to be up and running?
We're looking for organizations that have a track record of delivering significant and consistent results. That can be defined in different ways. We understand that organizations are at different points in their journey, but we are going to be looking for some sort of results. We'd certainly be open to those results being used to establish a new area of work, to adapt some ongoing area of work, but this is not a sort of innovation or startup challenge.
Is this challenge interested in collective impact models and system building work, or is this more focused on individual organizations and direct service provision?
Collective impact work and systems work is crucial, and we absolutely welcome organizations that are doing collective work in communities to apply. Please, though, do keep in mind the criteria. So this gets back to what Lynn said. One of the criteria is around scale. So we've been very careful and thoughtful in the way that we define scale. It's not just about scaling a direct service. It might be about having a collective or systems-based process that itself could be really relevant to other communities and could be relevant to the country more broadly. But what's important is that we're not looking for approaches that are entirely unique and specific to a local context and don't have broader relevance for other communities, other places, for the broader country. And that's not to say that extremely local, non-scalable work is not important. It's incredibly important. It's one of the most important things in many communities. The Rockefeller Foundation has been proud to fund a lot of programs like that. But this particular challenge is looking for organizations that are doing work that really has lessons that are important to other communities, has a lot of more kind of broadly relevant knowledge to share, or even a model that could be scaled. I hope that answers the question. That's a complicated one, and it's a really important one.
We've had several questions about videos, and I just want to be really clear that the video is not a requirement for the first round of application. So you do not need to create a video for this first round of application. If you are invited to submit a round 2 application, then a video will be required at that point in time.
Great, thank you, Lynn. Next question. Our organization was a fiscal sponsor to an organization that received funds from Rockefeller. Does that exclude us from being able to apply?
In this case, I think it would be helpful if you could submit your question to questions@communitiesthrivechallenge.org with the specifics so that we can look at it and there are legal implications to it, and we make sure that we get you the accurate answer.
Great. Next question. For multi-agency and collaborative proposals, what are the accountability standards associated to each agency, or will all of that be centered on the lead applying agency?
So I'm not sure that I totally understand what is meant by accountability standards. So if you do have a specific question, feel free to submit it to questions@communitiesthrivechallenge.org, and we'll be sure to get back to you. For partnerships, yes, the application is centered around the lead applicant to an extent. We need to, for example, we will look at that lead applicant to make sure the financial requirements are met. There is a $200,000 minimum annual budget that's required to be an applicant. So the main lead applicant will be assessed based on for that type of information. However, what we'll be looking at for the partnership is really the kind of substantive questions of, how are you working together to achieve an impact in your community? What kind of leadership does this partnership have? What kind of community-based feedback mechanisms do you have? How are you learning from the community that you partner with or that you serve?
Thanks, Rachel. Next question. How will potentially sensitive information in applications, such as salaries and overhead rates, be treated during the peer review process? How will we know that our sensitive information will be protected through this process?
I don't believe that we are asking for any sensitive information in the round 1 application. We're not asking for salaries or any financial information. However, having said that, we take your privacy and security seriously, and we have security controls in place. The software is password protected, so please don't share your password or username with other people. Please let us know if you have any concerns about that. However, we were very conscientious and thoughtful about not asking for sensitive information like that in the application.
Next question, what is the plan after 2 years of the grant?
So both the Rockefeller Foundation and the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative are at an exciting moment where we're thinking about our longer term funding strategies. How can we show up and be the most useful partner possible when it comes to expanding economic opportunity in the US? So the grants that we make here and the relationships that we build will really help to inform those longer term and larger funding strategies. In terms of the plan for the grantees after this, we certainly are looking for organizations that have some sort of plan for financial sustainability that does not only pertain to this grant. And we also would encourage organizations to think about how this funding fits into their broader picture. Will it be leveraging other dollars? That's not a requirement, but it can certainly be very helpful. How does it fit into your long-term financial plan? And these can also be some of the topics that are explored through the technical assistance for the final 10 grantees. I hope that answers the question. I wasn't sure if what happens after the 2 years was about Rockefeller and CZI or if it was about the grantee. So if there's a more specific question there, please feel free to submit it online and we'll get back to you.
I'm going to read a question here for Jenny. Will you be taking into consideration the diversity of programming and populations served when determining the 10 finalists in order to ensure that the Communities Thrive Challenge reaches a wide range of people and demographics?
Diversity is crucial to us. It's an extremely important value both to the Rockefeller Foundation and to the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative. It's very important for us to make sure that the final grantees have authentic and genuine leadership that are really of and from the communities that they're working in. So yes, all I can say is that the diversity across many different dimensions is extremely important to us.
Next question, how are you defining community? Is it by geographic jurisdiction, professional sector, or broader?
That is up to the applicant. So while we imagine many of the applications will come from organizations that when they refer to community, they mean a place where, and a place and a group of people in that place that they are serving. There are other ways to define a community, absolutely. So we encourage you to define communities as you genuinely and authentically do in your work, to let us know who is part of that community, what the community is like, what the context is for working with them, and there's space to do that in the application.
Great. Next question. Is there a preference given to particular types of organizations, such as direct service versus intermediaries, policy change versus community organizing or advocacy, etc.?
No, there is no preference based on organization type. What we'll be looking for is really for the organizations that excel based on those traits, those criteria that are explained on the website.
Great. And this question, I believe it's been addressed, but there are many, many questions. So once more, questions about funding restrictions on indirect costs, on capital costs, salaries, wages, et cetera. If you could just quickly repeat any funding restrictions.
There are no formal funding restrictions in terms of indirect costs for general operating support grants. All of the grants, including to the registered 501c3 nonprofits and to other types of organizations, still will need to meet charitability requirements as per IRS law, and that's something that we look at in the application process. But there are no specific restrictions in addition to those regulations, no specific restrictions that Rockefeller or CZI has.
Great, thank you. Here's another question that I've received quite a few times. Is there an opportunity for organizations to partner on a joint application? And maybe explain a little bit about how applying as partner organizations may work.
Yes, absolutely. Partnerships are welcome, and there's a very clear way to do it on the application. So there must be one main anchor organization, and that organization needs to meet eligibility requirements and will be the entity that would actually receive the grant funding. However, other partners don't have to meet eligibility requirements. So for example, governments are not eligible to apply. However, governments are welcome to be a partner to a lead applicant. We encourage you to really talk to us about how your partnership will work in the application. Have you partnered before? How do you know that it will be successful? What are the different roles that different organizations will play? Why is this partnership likely to make the impact even greater than if it were just one of these organizations? So that's the type of information that will be important to convey if you're applying in partnership.
For a 501c3 working with other organizations, what documentation for partnerships is needed?
Rachel, do you want
to start, Lynn? I guess, sorry, I'll just say we're not requiring MOUs or any sort of formal and specific documentation, but all of the partners should certainly be involved in contributing to the application. And Lynn, do you want to speak to any more specific details?
Yeah, all I was going to say is for round one in particular, there is no requirement for that. What we're really looking for you to do is to really describe how your organizations work together and the impact that you have on the problem you're addressing. And as the process moves further into round two, and then any sort of specific, if you're named as a finalist, the Rockefeller Foundation and Chan Zuckerberg Initiative may ask for additional details. But for round one application, there's nothing specific that's required. We've
received several questions regarding what does the evaluation what does the evaluation process and requirements look like for those organizations that are awarded a grant?
Sorry, Jenny, can you repeat that one more time?
Yeah, sorry, yes. Several people are just asking what the evaluation requirements might be for those that do receive the grant in the end.
Lynn, do you want to speak to the traits again?
Yeah, I think the question really, Rachel, is about post-awarding of the grant, if there's any evaluation monitoring that happens as part of the grant agreement.
Oh, I see. Yes, so those are details that will be worked out with each grantee. But yes, there will be some required reports, both on the sort of finances and on the program implementation and results. We work very hard to make sure that that is not a burden to organizations, that it's not extremely time consuming, but it is important to continue to monitor and share results. As much as possible with our grantees, we try to really make that just a natural relationship, hopefully a useful, good relationship with you know, a two-way street there. And we try to fold the reporting and monitoring into that.
Great, thank you. What if an organization has a track record for changing people's lives, but not necessarily for economic development? Will that organization be considered and competitive?
So this challenge is focused on economic opportunity. And we, you know, sometimes we get a question of, well, what does that actually include? What does that mean to you? Economic opportunity means different things to different people. We have tried to define it a little bit more. So we've talked about better work, which for example, could apply to job quality. It could apply to working with employers to strengthen the quality of a job. It could apply to policy work that improves working conditions. Another category is around skill development and opportunity matching. So that could look at the world of upskilling, of workforce development, of training, of you know, partnerships with community colleges. Another looks at financial security, that it could be around you know, financial inclusion, financial counseling, financial coaching. That could also be around things like benefits, new or more innovative forms of benefits. And then the last category that we included is around kind of vibrant communities, economically vibrant communities. And that really speaks to issues like inclusive economic development, entrepreneurship, a much kind of broader range of things that live around economic opportunity and work, even, you know, transportation, childcare, all of the things that we all need to be able to work and effectively participate in the economy. So that's, you know, our best attempt to define what we mean by economic opportunity. We certainly welcome you to apply if your work fits into one or multiple of those categories, or if you think it really is about economic opportunity, but you would define it in your own words.
Great. Can an organization submit more than one application for different aspects of our work?
No, each organization can only submit one application. And with the exception of if you are a large organization like a university that has multiple departments that are separate and distinct. But in general, the answer is no. Each organization can just submit one application.
Next question. Many people are asking if we can share how big the applicant pool is expected to be.
So Rachel, I'll leave that up to you, but generally we say that we have robust interest.
Sounds good. Thank you, Lynn.
What is the timeline for round 2 applications and awards being made?
So that's a great segue into one of my reminders that I have here for the timeline. So I will answer that question, but I have a few other reminders that I want to say as well. So if you take nothing else away from the call today, if you have not already registered, please register. Please go to www.communitiesthrivechallenge.org. There's a big yellow button in the upper right-hand corner that currently says 20 days to register. You must be registered in order to apply. The deadline for registration is June 12th, 2018 at 5 p.m. Pacific. Again, you must be registered in order to be able to apply. So please don't wait. Take care of that right away. It takes about 30 seconds. The next thing that I want to say is that very quickly after the registration deadline, your round 1 application will be due. It is due on June 19th, 2018 at 5 p.m. And then if you, all of this information is on the competition timeline, and I'm actually reading straight directly from the timeline, so please take a look at it there. But after the submission deadline, we'll have an administrative review, then we'll have the peer-to-peer review, then we'll have applications. If you are invited to submit a round 2 application, those applications will be due on August 6th at 5 p.m. Pacific. There'll be another administrative review, and then those applications will go to the expert panel. That review will take place in August, and the selections of finalists will occur in late August. And then there'll be site visits that are required of those finalists in September, and then grantees will be selected during the months of October and November, and then we expect to announce the grantees in late November.
Thank you, Lynn, for that great overview of the timeline.
One more.
I think we have time for one more question. Let me see. Sorry, making sure we've covered all of the topics here. I mean, I think really just a reiteration of eligible organizations. People have asked, are public higher institutions eligible? Are for-profit organizations eligible? So if you, Rachel, could just quickly go through the eligibility one more time for types of organizations.
Yeah, and I'm happy to go over that as well. So please, all of those eligible organizations are spelled out in much detail in the rules. So www.communitiesthrivechallenge.org/rules, and you can see the list of organizations that are listed there. 501(c)(3), 501(c)(4), 501(c)(6). An organization that are not charitable, including for-profit, but whose proposal or whose application has a primary purpose of being charitable under the law, local organizations associated with national networks, and post-secondary educational institutes that are focused on one of the issue areas, as long as they are not research. That's spelled out on the competition website. We really encourage you to go and look at that. But if you do have a question, you can submit it to questions@communitiesthrive.challenge. That was our last question. I'm just going to wrap up again by saying, if you haven't already registered, please do by the deadline, which is June 12th at 5 p.m. Pacific. In order to submit an application, you must first be registered. So please go take care of that if you haven't already. Thank you so much for attending. I'll turn things over to Rachel to wrap it up.
Hi, this is Rachel again from the Rockefeller Foundation. Thank you so much for joining this webinar, for asking all of these great questions. I wish that we could have gotten to every single question. There were just so many more than we could answer in an hour. So if you're, please follow Lynn's advice, check out the frequently asked question part of the website, check out the rules. So many of the answers are there, but if they're not, feel free to submit your question to questions@communitiesthrivechallenge.org. And we really do encourage you to go and register so that we have your information and that you're all ready to submit an application in time for the deadline in June. So thank you so much. I really look forward to reviewing the applications, and have a great rest of your day.